Hello everybody and welcome back to the funniest tweets. Today we are diving into the Qatar Grand Prix, a sprint weekend that certainly delivered. If anything, the Saturday was actually more of a delivery than the Sunday. 19 laps of crazy action with Oscar Piastri now being a winner. But of course we had lots of things to talk about. Track limits, we have penalties, we have an incident at the beginning, which we're definitely getting into. So let's dive into your tweets right now. Hamilton versus Russell. Hamilton has got a better start. He's got a better start. He's got a better start. Here we go. Oh
Hamilton.
My God.
Oh, they've hit.
Oh, they've hit each other. Oh my God.
Oh my God, it's happened.
Oh my God,
it's happened.
What have that? I can't really believe that the first thing we're talking about is Hamilton and Russell coming together on lap one after a massive collision. Now, Hamilton swinging it round the outside, starting on the soft tyres, Russell on the mediums, and you're thinking, okay, this could get tasty. And it did. Hamilton was clearly trying to take the lead on the soft tyres, which was a strange choice anyway. And Russell just gets sandwiched at Scuderia F1. Nico Rosberg watching the crash between Lewis and George. Yeah, Nico Rosberg, of course, there, part of the Sky team. He would have seen it, probably had a few flashbacks to Spain 2016, where that created a massive feud between himself and Hamilton. And we had quite a bit of spice from there on. But Lewis Hamilton, almost immediately, after seeing the replays, basically said, look, it was my fault. 100% take the blame. It's a fair play. At Nando Lorries, a summary of lap one, turn one for Mercedes. Why would my own teammate do this? Yes. Now, I did say that Hamilton, of course, owned up to it, but when he was in the car, little team radio just to say, I've been taken out by my own teammate. Now, of course, you know, he's in the heat of the moment. I'm pretty sure almost all of us would get onto the team radio and say something with some kind of emotion after being taken out of a Formula One race at the first corner when potentially going to go take the lead, although there was never the win really on the cards today for Mercedes. But Russell did look quick. But yes, he did come over that. But he took it back. He took it back. Russell, it was weird actually because Russell himself was almost apologising. And then he watched the replay behind the safety car and was like, actually, no, I wasn't in the wrong. At Ball R004, George was hoping for a chill first lap. Of course, he was on the dirty side of the grid, and we knew how bad that was for Lando Norris on Saturday, and he got a pretty good start, to be fair. It wasn't much slower than Max Verstappen. Lewis obviously got a bit better of a second phase, especially with the soft tyres, and then being able to swoop around the outside. But yeah, and this Barbie meme was great, so there you go. At DJ Patrick Prime, Hamilton into turn one. I turn now. Good luck, everybody else. It did feel like that a little bit. Of course, I'm not sure that's what Hamilton would have felt like in the cockpit. He probably assumed that George had potentially backed out slightly. That's the only way I can sort of assess that, because Hamilton has enough experience on his shoulders to know not to turn into two cars that are going into the apex. But he just hadn't cleared his teammate, tried to obviously take quite an aggressive line in, and unfortunately, he was out of the race. I would have liked to have seen just how well he could have done on the softs. Of course, he probably would have been quite quick in the first few laps and maybe gone for a really early pit stop. But instead, we didn't see it because his tyre came off. George, on the other hand, he was very lucky to be able to stay in the race and then secure an amazing P4. What a comeback. All right, listen up, everyone. How do you fancy an exclusive Surfshark VPN deal on this glorious P1 YouTube channel?
Well, that's what's on offer, and 3 extra months free too.
What does Surfshark VPN actually do? Well, it keeps you safe and private by covering up everything you do online, and it allows you to travel the world with the tap of a finger, allowing you to access more movies from different countries.
There's also a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you have nothing to lose.
If you're not using Surfshark VPN, it's like actively choosing to not pit from the lead on worn, hard tyres under a safety car during the British Grand Prix.
The offering doesn't end there either. Why not try Surfshark Alert, which monitors your personal data, checks for potential breaches, and protects your identity so you can be safer on the internet.
So what are you waiting for? Get the exclusive Surfshark deal now by going to surfshark.deals/P1 and entering the code P1 for an extra 3 months free. Perez penalties. So we've got another segment for Sergio Perez. Yep, he could not keep it within the white lines and therefore got a series of 5-second penalties. Wasn't the only one. I'm not going to completely just say that Sergio Perez was the only driver to not respect track limits, because that is not true. But the memes came in flying, so I have to include them. At Ahmed Bakbar, another 5-second time penalty for Sergio Perez. It did feel like that a little bit, that Perez was very much being targeted, but then Alex Albon, I think, had 5 or 6 warnings himself. So the drivers were getting 5-second penalties all over the shop, and you were just wondering who is actually going to get that sort of 8th, 9th, 10th position, because it kept chopping and changing with all of the penalties. At Mr. Idiot. Yeah, it did feel like that, didn't it? Especially the team radio of Red Bull speaking to Sergio Perez and saying, that's another 5-second penalty. This is hurting our race. I don't think there's a more gut-wrenching team radio that you could really receive from your team. You are hurting our race with the way you're driving. It was basically what they said. So, yeah, not the best of drives for Perez this time out. The fact that he scored... He got another penalty, actually, didn't he? Right at the end, when all the drivers were sort of, you know, in the cool-down room or whatever. It felt like Perez got another one and then dropped down to 10th. There was so much going on with the 3 pit stops that everyone were having. Some people had 4. The race was so hard to keep on top of. At It's Your Boy 15, Perez a few laps after getting a track limits penalty. Want to see me do it again? And he did. What do we think? What do we think Red Bull are thinking right now? I know we have the Perez discussion a lot, but I genuinely believe he would bounce back by now. I think a lot of us probably felt not even to be winning races, but just to be on the podium. I predicted him to be on the podium this weekend, but he did not. And he had another pretty woeful race. So for me, I just think he needs this season to end, but we've got 5 more races. At Joe Gamer 6p, Red Bull in a nutshell. At one point, Max Verstappen actually lapped Sergio Perez. Now, I will say, Max still had 1 stop to go, I think, but it was quite shocking. It hadn't clocked in my brain with all the things that were going on. I was like, wait, that's both the Red Bulls. Max is lapping Sergio Perez. Max is living proof that having a fast car is not the only thing you need. The greats like, you know, Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, that they can perform and get the absolute last droplet out of these cars when given a race-winning car. And that's the reason why they win loads of world championships, although Fernando has burnt many bridges and therefore he only has 2, but a lot of people still consider him to be one of the greats, surely. So, look, the Red Bull's been amazing, but I have to sort of fly that flag slightly for Red Bull and say, and for Max Verstappen, more importantly, that it's not just the car. It's not autopilot. Max had to work for it today, especially. At Mr. Venter 31. But you love a Perez meme. I won't lie to you. We have got other driver memes which we're going to stick in honourable mentions, but some of them are really quite good. Like this one, you know, it's creative. Well done, Christian. I have seen other versions of it. So yeah, and the final Sergio Perez meme, I promise, is from Moofy17. Checo has just been having a hell of a time. The floor is Perez finishing a race without getting a penalty. Maybe 2024 will be his year. Those first 3 races feel like 10 years ago, where Perez was being spoken about. Can he challenge Max? Where did those times go? What changed? Honourable mentions. So before we dive into honourable mentions, I just want to preface it and say that there were a lot of jokes and memes around the drivers at the end of the race, in the cool-down room, and them being tired and so on and so forth. I've taken that out of respect, just purely because of the reports that have now come out, obviously, around the drivers fainting and being really quite unwell. And that's not what we want to see. I myself put a tweet out and I instantly deleted it when I realised the severity of the situation. So really hope the drivers get better soon, because we don't want to see that. It must have been the 3-stop strategy and allowing the drivers to push as hard as they wanted around a track that is so physical, and the heat and the humidity. It was just a combination that clearly doesn't work. So we'll see what F1 do about it in the future. A driver that was struggling in the middle of the race was Fernando Alonso, but because of his car and a burning seat. At Shumi Mercedes, this is what Fernando Alonso needs for his burning seat. Yeah, it was quite a strange thing for him to say, and the fact that he genuinely sounded like he needed some sort of ice bath or ice bucket challenge, I think Crofty called it, and sort of chucked something over him, but nothing came of it, and he just had to keep going because the drivers, the teams, they do 2-second pit stops. There's no time for that unless they are genuinely going to give up some of that time. But Fernando Alonso continued on like a trooper. At Casito_NL leaked pictures of Alonso playing in the gravel. Now, this was a bit later on. Alonso made a mistake, just went on the sort of exit curb out of turn 1, I think it was, and just went on a little expedition, didn't he, old Fernando? Another sort of uncharacteristic mistake, but I think with just all of the different elements to this Grand Prix weekend, we had the new track surface, which was slippery and quite not grippy, for want of a better word. Of course, you had the sand on the track, and you had the heat and the humidity and everything else. And Alonso obviously made a mistake in Singapore, makes another mistake here as well. Still managed to bag some very decent points, but yeah, Fernando went for a nice little drift. And then a very unsafe rejoin. Like, that was crazy. That was F1 game sprint lobby. I need to get back on the track as soon as possible antics from Fernando. At the Dr. Ray, Hulk seeing Carlos Sainz's grid space. Nico Hülkenberg was supposed to start 14th, I think, but he saw that grid space and went, that's mine. Because, of course, Carlos had that fuel leak issue. I'm not going to go into it too much because it feels like an eternity ago, and he couldn't start the race. Sad times for Ferrari. But Nico Hülkenberg, he actually threw away what could have maybe been a point or two had he not got that massive 10-second penalty and really thrown his race away. At Sarah BHD Parrick, me trying to estimate the next pit stop for each driver by adding 18 to the current lap. I was exactly the same. I'm sure a lot of you were as well. Let me know in the comments how you were working that out. Were you just guessing? Were you going, oh, they're going to be in the pits soon? I will say that Formula One did a pretty good job of having a little graphic come up to let us know when Oscar Piastri will have to pit and so on and so forth. But my God, there was so much going on, especially with some of the drivers pitting on lap 1 with the safety car, some pitting early, some going all the way to lap 18. So you just had all of these mixture of strategies. And I'm sure the overtake tally is absolutely loving life after the Qatar Grand Prix. But yeah, it was fun to try and keep sort of tabs on what was going on. And we've got another Alonso one at FVB2309. I think this is something he would have absolutely loved to have. Alonso's seat heating up, Alonso after the race. I mean, I can't think of anything worse than genuinely being sat in what feels like a furnace and having no respite whatsoever. Like, they're hot enough as it is with all of those overalls, but for then his car seat, obviously near the engine, is overheating to a level where he's feeling discomfort as a 42-year-old goat that is Fernando Alonso. You know, it was probably pretty hot. At Andres Adam 44, FIA with track limits this weekend. They loved it. They absolutely loved it. Perez was, of course, a big victim of that, but, just stay in track limits. But I did feel as though, sometimes we were riding on board with Sergio and he would go over by, that much. And I just sat there and I went, how many drivers are getting away with this? I need to know the exact process that the FIA are taking to monitor track limits. Are they watching track cameras and just there's people that are staring at certain corners, or are they watching onboards and there's 20 people in a room all watching one driver's onboard? I need to know. At Crystal Horner, the real star of the show. Tears in Troy? No, Gabriella. Tears in track limits. How do we feel about track limits? I feel like we talk about it so much. 10 years ago, we didn't talk about it at all, I swear. I don't remember a track limits conversation apart from when maybe I used to league race on the F1 game. In real life Formula One, it just never was anything, and then it became something, and now it's all we talk about is track limits. For me, I would just love it for it to be self-policing, and that's it. We don't even need to talk about it, because the curbs make you lose time no matter where you go. But on the flip side of that, you don't want curbs that are cutting the tyres up like Qatar was. So one day we'll get there, but I don't know when that'll be. At Overview Effect, everyone's reaction when seeing Fernando going wide into the gravel, especially this mudded weekend for Stroll. I'm sure we all sort of, for a moment, thought although Lance did have a pretty good race, considering the depths of despair and sadness that he was in after we know what happened with the incident on Friday, But he had a reasonable race. He had some penalties, but he didn't crash into anyone, and he actually did a minute 15 post-race interview, so I'd say that's a W. At Laub, the camera work in that Verstappen pit stop. I do love a little spinneroo camera work, although they did that and then Max had a slow stop, because usually they flip it, and then by the time they flipped it or spun it or whatever you call it, the car's then going away, and then it's like a beautiful transition. They spun it, Max was still there. So then we were all sat there as, the non-Red Bull fans are going, Maybe we should do that more often and we get 4-second pit stops for Red Bull. Right, it's now time for my favourite part of any week, of any time, of any place. It's Tommy's Tasty Tweet, sponsored by EA and F123. Tommy, who has won the wonderful F123 game?
The winner is Blah Blah 29 with this brilliant, very niche reference in a race where quite a lot of crazy things happened, and it's a GIF about a little camera spin, but it was a very funny moment, and a dog GIF is always a winner, so well done.
A dog GIF is a win, and a golden retriever especially is right up there, top bins, #1 dog for me, so well done. I genuinely didn't realise that was the name. I thought you just couldn't be bothered to pronounce it, but Blah Blah 29. Well done, you win a game of F1 23, and Tommy, that's it. We'll see you in a couple of weeks for the next winner.
Hell yeah. Bye.
Bye. Right, that is it. Thank you so much for watching the funniest tweets to the Qatar Grand Prix. A big shout out to EA, as always, for sponsoring Tommy's Tasty Tweet. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks. #P1 if you want to get involved for the Austin edition for the United States Grand Prix. And you may well win an amazing copy of F123. And until then, we'll see you very soon. Bye! I remembered the green screen. I remembered.